Thanks very much indeed, Verena. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Nürburgring, the sprint version of the circuit, 3.6 kilometres long. Big moment in the championship last year in the first race when Mirko Bortolotti came together on a damp track with Felipe Fraga at the final turn to set his championship charge off the rails. And then the next day, the first ever brothers to finish first and second in a DTM race, Sheldon and Calvin van der Linde. Great celebrations here after what started out last year as a very foggy weekend. If you were watching 12 months ago, you might remember we had a serious delay to the racing on the Saturday. But welcome to blue, sunny Nürburgring today. It's a bit chilly for the time of year, less than 13 degrees, nice in the sun. But if you're in the shade here this morning, there's a real bite. We have had some rain in the build-up to the weekend on Wednesday, Thursday. But yesterday, despite one or two dark clouds around, it remained pretty much dry throughout the course of the day. One or two specks of rain in the morning, but we did have a downpour, pretty heavy downpour at the end of the day yesterday into the evening, which will have freshened up and greened up the track here. So it'll be perhaps a little bit of an exploration for the drivers and teams now to find out exactly how much grip there is compared to what they had yesterday. There then is Thomas Preining, championship leader, as Verena said, 88 points, 10 points clear of the defending champion Sheldon van der Linde, who's been working his way very niftily up the championship table after a bad start where he scored only 5 points in the first weekend at Oschersleben. Ricardo Feller has been very consistent this year, but look at that, 61 points for Feller, 61 points for Engel, and then one behind, Pereira and Bortolotti, 60 each as Thomas Preining fires himself up, ready to get into qualifying. It's all about consistency this year, you suspect, because it's such a wide-open championship. I don't think any one driver is going to bag 4 or 5 race victories this year, so you need that consistency to get the wins and the podiums when you're able to do so, but score at all the time, and that's what we've had this year. We've had 6 races, and we've had 6 different race winners. From Pereira in the first round of the championship at Oschersleben. Christian Engelhardt won race 2 there, and then we went to Zandvoort. There was victory for Maro Engel in the first race. Then we had a victory for Ricardo Feller, his second in the DTM. That was in the second race at Zandvoort. And then at the Nürburgring, Sheldon van der Linde got his first win of the season on Saturday, and Thomas Preining, as he did at Nürburgring last year, got a race victory in the Porsche, albeit with a different team this year, and he became the 6th different race winner. We have also had 6 qualifying sessions this year, and guess what? 6 different pole sitters, just to let you know exactly how wide open it has been. From Pereira and Thomas Preining with the pole sitters, respectively, at Oschersleben and then at Zandvoort. Pole positions in a very tight session in Holland went the way of Maro Engel, who went on to get a race victory. Ricardo Feller, he did the same. And then at Nürburgring, we had Sheldon van der Linde on pole on Saturday. And René Rast on pole position on Sunday to equal Bernd Schneider's record of 25 pole positions, something he'll be looking to break today as another driver that has worked his way up the championship table. For now, the weather looks set fair for qualifying. There is a chance of some light rain just before we go racing at about 1 o'clock. The forecast is that there's a 66% chance that we're going to get some rain, but the Eifel region, where we are now at the Nürburgring, has its very own weather, very localised weather system. I spoke to Olaf Mante yesterday, who is the team founder of Mante, one of the local teams just outside of the circuit boundaries. He works here, he lives here, he knows the place like the back of his hand. I said, right, can you tell me what the weather's going to do this weekend? And he just shrugged his shoulders and smiled and said, all I can tell you is that it is always changeable here. So be prepared for different weathers. But for now, it's all good. And we're about to get qualifying underway to set the grid for the first race of the weekend. As Verena mentioned, championship points up for grabs as well. 3 points for pole, 2 points for qualifying second, and a point for qualifying in 3rd place. They all add up at the end of the season as well to make quite a big difference. So Chris Hartley here in the commentary box overlooking the start-finish straight, ready to talk you through the action over the course of the weekend as the cars are released out onto the circuit. And alongside me in the commentary box, it's a very good morning to Brian Oliver.
Good morning, Chris. It's so good to be here at the Nürburgring. The weather always is the headline here, isn't it? And we've spent most of the week trying to work out what the weather was going to be like and what it is going to be like today and tomorrow. One thing is for sure, there was that big downpour last night has washed the track. We had a GT4 qualifying session just before this, but the track is still pretty green, so we'd expect to see drivers coming out for a sighter lap, coming back in, maybe doing a banker lap, but would really expect expect to see the pole position time and the really fast times being set towards the end of this short, sharp 20-minute qualifying session.
We got two new drivers this weekend. Maximilian Paul has come into the number 19 Grasser Racing Team Lamborghini. As we look at Ricardo Feller there, and not for the first time, ABD are clearly opting to, with at least one of their drivers, hold fire, not go out in the first part of qualifying, which always makes me, Brian, very nervous, because we've seen this before. They don't go out, they go out at the end, it's a mad 10 minutes, and then somebody goes off, there's a red flag, and suddenly there's a lot of stressed out teams and drivers that haven't yet got a lap time in.
It's a high-risk strategy, it really is, and to be out of the car when there are less than 20 minutes, we're 18 and a half minutes left of this session. He's not even in it. There's a man who is in it, René Rast. Anybody who thought he was out of the championship because he didn't appear at Zandvoort were very much mistaken. He had a great time at Nürburgring. He knows his way around there, doesn't he? And he is well and truly back in the championship hunt. Looked very good in free practice yesterday. Question is what can the BMWs do, especially about the Porsches, which seem to be very strong this year?
Yeah, he's climbed back up to 7th in the championship, despite missing the weekend at Zandvoort due to his Formula E duties, René Rast. He's also been a race winner around this circuit in the past, when both the races in 2018, won a race here in 2019 as well. So, yeah, just to finish off, Max Paul coming in, replacing this weekend Mick Wieshover for Grasser Racing. He's very experienced, still very young driver, but has built up 4 or 5 years racing experience in GT Masters, and was also in the DTM a couple of years ago on a one-off weekend at the Red Bull Ring, in which he performed to a high level. So Max Paul in the Grasser Racing Team number 19 Lamborghini. And we've got an additional car and an additional driver this weekend, and a second Project One run BMW, number 56, Sandro Holzem, who is just 19 years of age, becomes the youngest driver on the grid, even younger than the driver you've just seen coming into the pits in the number 69 Ferrari, Thierry Vermeulen. So Max Paul is in for just this weekend. Sandro Holzem, we'll wait and see if he does more rounds, but he did get on the podium in the last GT Masters weekend here at the Nürburgring, alongside Marco Wittmann, who's of course his teammate at Project One. One of the onboard cameras you saw there with Jack Aitken, podium finisher in his first ever weekend in the DTM at Oschersleben. He's also had to miss a round due to his sports car duties, but he is very much back for the rest of the season now, Jack. And cars opting to do a recce lap and then come back in. Just a quick note on the changes from Nürburgring to here in terms of balance and performance. The Audis and the Lamborghinis are 5 kilograms lighter in terms of the amount of success ballast that's on the cars. The BMW's 5 kilograms heavier. The Mercedes 10 kilograms heavier. Porsches have remained the same. The Ferraris 15 kilograms lighter. Also a tweak, very slight tweak, a bit more boost for the Ferrari, just 0.25 bar. And the BMWs have gone down from 2.71. With less boost now, down to 2.63. So that's the BOP as it stands coming into this qualifying session. So a few drivers went out, Brian, but nobody's actually decided to try and set a lap time, just doing a recce. One of the interesting things that Lucas Auer was saying yesterday in a post-qualifying report was that here at the Nürburgring, it takes a little while to get the tyres up to temperature, because there's not really any fast corners to generate that heat, but also the asphalt here is a little bit slippery. So he was saying you might need 5 or 6 laps run to get the best out of the tyres and build up that heat into them gradually, which is obviously going to affect things here.
Yes, team radio from Kevin van der Linde.
Everybody except your brother, René, and Feller is on our procedure. They're all boxing now. The only 3 cars that are not doing it is Feller, your brother, and René. So box, box.
Yeah, it's very interesting with, we always see this, they go out, do this cycle lap, the systems check, make sure everything's working, and also just to get the brakes and get a bit of heat into the tyres. But we saw it yesterday with Thomas Preining. He was out for a number of laps consecutively, wasn't he? We saw him just chonking away, getting those times down, and I wonder if we'll see that today, as Lucas Auer suggested, that the drivers will go out maybe a bit earlier than the absolute end of the session, and we'll see them improving those times, and maybe on the 5th or 6th lap seeing times that are towards the front of the grid.
So Patrick Niederhaus there went pretty well in free practice yesterday in the Tresor Tempto Audi, former GT Masters champion, alongside Kelvin van der Linde. There's Jack Aitken's Emil Frey Racing run Ferrari, the new 296 Ferrari brought out this year. That's a turbo-engined car, that one. 3-litre V6 engine powering that one along to around about 600 brake horsepower. The sessions yesterday were topped in terms of the times. Overall fastest time went in the second session to Mirko Bortolotti, put a really good lap in quite close towards the end of free practice too, which actually got to within a whisker of the qualifying lap record. So the qualifying lap record here, just as benchmark time, was a 1:25.945 set by Sheldon van der Linde last year on the Sunday qualifying. So 1:25.9. Yesterday, Mirko Bortolotti also did a 1:25.9, but just a few thousandths slower than that, 1:25.977. He was the only driver that got into the 1:25s yesterday, so he was quickest in free practice too. Lucas Howard had a couple of late improvements. He was kind of nowhere. The Mercedes seemed to struggle yesterday, although you never quite know what's going on in free practice. But Lucas put in 2 late laps, including his very last lap, to go second in the end with the Mercedes. So the Team Windward car, 1:26.320, was 3 tenths down on Bortolotti. In front, Pereira was third in free practice 2. The earlier session, free practice 1. Dennis Olsen and Thomas Preining were the fastest 2. In the Mante EMA Porsches, Ricardo Feller was third in the Abt Sportsline Audi. They got 2 sets of used tyres and 1 set of new Pirellis to use yesterday. But over the weekend, the race weekend, Saturday and Sunday, they get 3 sets of new Pirellis for this weekend. It varies circuit to circuit, but it's 3 sets here. You've spotted something, Brian.
Don't talk to the bus driver during quali. Is that a subtle message to the team, do you think?
Or was it a reference to the safari that we had yesterday?
Yes.
Which was quite interesting. After free practice 2 yesterday, the first ever safari, DTM safari we had. What's that, you ask? Well, yesterday, about 10 minutes after free practice, 3 buses full of guests went out onto the circuit. They had a number of racing drivers giving them a guided tour. They did 2 laps of the circuit. And the interesting thing about it was the buses weren't alone, because all the DTM cars came out and did 15 minutes worth of running in and around them, which looked pretty spectacular, didn't it?
It was wonderful. You need to check out the pictures on social media. It's quite bizarre seeing these coaches out on track with cars weaving in and out of them, but the drivers were coming up really close and then accelerating past. And from what I hear, everybody on those coaches absolutely loved it. I think it might become a regular thing on the DTM calendar. Wonderful stuff.
Yeah, and they actually ran the timing screen as well. Went down towards the end of it into a couple of the garages yesterday, and Mirko Bortolotti was quickest in that session as well. As a replay of Thomas Preining just sort of psyching himself up, ready to go. I spoke to Maro Engel as well, because Maro yesterday didn't go out at all. Well, he did go out, but didn't go out very much at all in his Mercedes, and he said they had an ABS braking issue with the car. It got fixed, and I said, well, actually, was that safari a bit of extra useful practice for you? He said, yes, it was, because they were able to test that we got the car fixed on Sunday, so it was useful.
Brilliant.
Extra bit of time for Maro.
Yeah.
I said, so you've lost a bit of time, Maro, but it doesn't really matter around the Nürburgring, because I think you know this place quite well, don't you? He said, yeah, understanding the track's not going to be a problem for me. This is, I mean, he could probably go around here. He's been around the Nürburgring that many times, Maro Engel, both here and the Nordschleife, as a former Nürburgring 24-hour race winner, that he could probably drive it with his eyes shut.
Yes, this track is the great leveler, isn't it? It's the one they've all done. It's this is the 4th round of the season. Rounds 1 and 2, Oschersleben and Zandvoort very much favoured the drivers who have come from GT Masters. They know those circuits really well indeed. Nürburgring, last time out, very much favoured those who have been in DTM for a while, a really unique kind of street circuit. But Nürburgring, they've all done this many, many times. This is where we find out really where they are in comparison to each other. Just really interesting looking at the number 83 car, Patrick Niederhauser, and also Einstein Guven. They just came past our commentary position, absolutely tucked up together. And clearly, I think Einstein Guven wants to get past the number 83 car and get a bit of space. But look how close he is. And we're only in qualifying at the moment.
Practicing their racing, aren't they? So off they head under the sunny skies, with one or two light fluffy clouds out there, but nothing menacing, like in some low cloud in the background overhanging the tops of the trees as well. But having had 0 cars on track, we've now got all 27 cars on track at the same time. 10 minutes to go, so it's basically become a 10-minute qualifying session, this. And of course, all the drivers are now going to complain about, you know, losing lap times because there was too much traffic out there.
Yeah, so this is exactly what you were saying earlier. This is drivers getting out now, starting to get the heat into the tyres, into the brakes. You can see the weaving there, just kind of generate that heat, and now going out there. A very different kind of qualifying session to what we've seen earlier on in the season. Now just going around, getting the heat into the tyres, and I think it's going to be quite busy out there for the next 9.5 minutes. We've probably had the lull already, and we're going to see those times coming down. We haven't got a competitive time yet. We're looking at Dennis Olsen, a 1:32. That's nowhere near what we're expecting. So just gradually building the heat into the tyres, and yeah, I'm told there is quite a narrow window, and you need to get the tyres into that window and hold it there, and that's when you put the hammer down and really go for it.
There's Olaf Mantei to the right of the picture. Mantei, the record holders in terms of the most Nürburgring 24-hour race wins, as they based a stone's throw from the circuit. It's also a local track, this, for the Talksport team. They run Tim Heinemann and Christian Engelhardt. Tim has had a couple of seconds and was the early season championship leader, and Christian, who was a winner that weekend, but both of whom have had struggles since then. So they too are a local team. And HRT as well, the team founded by Hubert Hout, is another local team just on the outside of the circuit, just a couple of kilometres from the track. It's on probably not this lap, but the next one we're going to start to see some proper times. As I say, it takes a little bit of time to build up the temperatures. 3.6 kilometres long. This is a pretty spectacular run through the Vidal chicane, which is turns 9 and 10. And next to the pit lane entry. So on the lap, divided into 3. The first sector is by far the longest sector. You've got to get that one right. It takes you from the start line all the way to the exit to the hairpin at turn 5, which is where they turn off the full Grand Prix circuit. That's almost half, or more than half of the lap time actually, is just in that first sector. And the two shorter sectors, sector 2 takes you through the left turn at the Kumu curve, turn 6, the right at Bitkurve, turn 7, uphill then, gradually to begin with, into the right-hander, flat out through Hudson Bexbogen, and then it's a steep climb at the end of that. You cross sector 2 there, and then the sector 3, steep climb through the chicane and through the final turn at turn 11. So into the 130s now, but again, we're not getting too excited about the times because we know it's going to go much, much quicker than this. And it could be a real blast here, couldn't it? Of almost just getting one run in, I think, here. We did see Thomas Priding yesterday. He did 5 laps, and there were 5 quick laps consecutively, weren't they? So I think they can, well, they definitely get, we know from the past 2 quick laps out of these tyres in qualifying if you built them up correctly. I think they're often at different circuits, depending on temperatures and the asphalt, you kind of get 2.5 laps out of them. You can get a good first, second sector, then it sort of fades away at the end. But I think here you might just be able to get 3 consecutive quick lap times out of it. Because if you think about it, Brian, are they going to have time to do a couple of laps, come in, change things, go back out again, have another run? Probably not, actually. Less than 7 minutes to go.
No, I mean, can you believe we're reaching almost the 3/4 stage of this session already? You can still see cars weaving, trying to generate that heat. It's all about the heat at the moment. But I feel that after this session is finished, we're going to have a lot of drivers saying, oh, well, it would have been better, but I couldn't get any space out on the track. There was too much traffic. It is a short circuit. It is only 3.629 kilometres, and you can see they're already right under each other's feet.
Yeah, Guillaume backing off there after a pretty good start to the lap. Looked like he was going to be the first one to record at the time. He backed it right off into turn 11. Yusuf Awega in the Mercedes behind him had to be mindful of that, but he's still building up tyre temperature. So in the end, 130. But Luca Engstler has got a bit quicker, 129.962. We saw him get top of the times in free practice yesterday, but he lost the lap time due to track limits. So Luca, the multiple TCR champion, TCR Germany, Asia and Malaysian champion for now, top of the times, but only with a 1:29. Here's Lucas Auer, still getting up to full fitness after his huge crash. He broke his vertebra at the start of the year at Daytona. He set the absolute best first sector time with a 43.802. 22.06 is okay, but Bortolotti's gone a bit quicker than that, so I think more to come. It's just going to be the one run, isn't it? There's still lots of them building up the times, temperatures, including Mirko Bortolotti. We saw that crash last year, going for the lead of the race when he was a real championship contender with Filippo Fraga. They had to come in together on the Sunday with Kelvin van der Linde as well, which cost him a 4th place finish at least, and derailed his championship campaign. But Bortolotti looking for his first podium this year. He's one of the 6 drivers that's been in the points in every single race this year. Had the consistency, but not yet had the silverware. Right, this is going to be a 10 4-minute qualifying session becomes a 5-minute qualifying session
Yes,
now, doesn't it? Nobody's really got going yet.
I mean, look at them. They are all on top of each other. And if somebody does end up in the gravel trap here, we are going to have a really mixed up grid, because we're getting to the stage now that if there is a stoppage, we're not going to have time to get the tyres back into the window and then get a hot lap in. So drivers really leaving it late. And you can see René Rast just backing off into the corner. And it was that Patrick Niederhauser behind, just having to take...
Cars, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think
take avoiding action.
Yeah, Drudy, yeah, because René Rast was coming up to his own teammate. He'd had a pretty good first two sectors, and then he backed right off as well. So Lucas Sauer might be the first one to put a time in that's relatively competitive. Yes, he does, 125.762. Wow. That's the best lap of the weekend so far. So that's the first proper lap of the session from Lucas Sauer, but there might be more to come. GT Masters here a few weeks ago, we got them down into the low 125, so I think we're going to go quicker than the 125.7, but it's a good start for Lucas Sauer. Here's Bortolotti then, who was on pole position for one of the rounds here 12 months ago. Can he go top of the times? Through he comes, yes, 125.355, wow. 4 tenths quicker. So now we are up and moving and rocking and rolling. Bortolotti quickest by 4 tenths our second. David Schumacher's put a 126 to it, but this is going to be one of those sessions, Brian, where every single time somebody comes across the line in the next 3 minutes, it's going to change.
Yeah, but it's going to be... keep your eye on the timing screens, because it is going to be changing by the second now. We saw Jack Aitken there, still trying to find some more speed out of the Ferrari. And we're also following Ricardo Fella, so he pops up in P8 at the moment. So a bit of work to do there for him. But yes, the time's starting to tumble a bit now. 125.355. That is the benchmark. Can we get it down to even lower in the 125s?
Thomas Priding's just gone fastest. Dennis Olsen was second, he's now third. His teammate goes to the top of the times, 125.323 for the number 91 Manthey Porsche of Thomas Priding, the championship leader. 32 thousandths of a second quicker than Bortolotti. Olsen is third with a 125.5, 2 tenths off the pace. So out down to fourth. Niederhauser fifth, Kelvin van der Linde and Sheldon van der Linde are 6th and 7th. Break them up now because 7th goes Marco Wittmann. But looking at sector times, which are now become really apparent because we've got some quick times to aim for. And is anybody going better in the first or middle sector? Not yet. No. Till Priding, who's quickest in the final sector. Bortolotti was really quick in the first sector, actually. So, yeah, he goes to the top of the times as he crosses the line and gets pole position back by 2 tenths of a second. And his teammate from Pereira in the other SSR Performance Lamborghini, number 94, round 1 winner, goes third. Make it fourth. Jack Aitken puts the Ferrari into the top 3. The absolute best middle sector. Kelvin van der Linde crosses the line. He goes third now with the 125.4. So it's Bortolotti, Priding, Kelvin van der Linde, Aitken 4th, Pereira 5th, Olsen in 6th place. Absolute best first sector to Bortolotti, Aitken best in the middle sector, Priding quickest of all in the 3rd sector, and Priding's done 2 personal bests here, so this could be back up to the top of the times or close to it from Thomas Priding. On board with him, he goes back on the front row of the grid. 2nd place, 125.278. But more to come. He's going to get at least one more lap in here. 1 minute 34 seconds left on the clock. Crossed the line with about 1:37 to go. So if he's got the tyres up to temperature and still working, he can definitely... Well, they're up to temperature. If he's got them working still, he could get 2 more laps out of this as we look at Marco Wittmann now. Crossing the line, and the BMW 10th. Bit disappointing, 125.754. Ricardo Fella's gone 3rd. So the apt Audis are going well. Fella in 3rd, Kelvin van der Linde, who's not had the greatest of luck so far this season, they're in 4th place.
Thomas Priding is going to be carrying an extra 20 kilos of success ballast in the race this afternoon, so a good starting position is very important for him. So P2 at the moment for Thomas Priding. He would love to be on the front row for that race. Of course, the success ballast is for the race, not in qualifying. René Rast has 10 kilos extra this afternoon, and Sheldon van der Linde has 5.
Dennis Olsen's just done a personal best first sector, but it was half a second down on the best personal, the best first sector. So Olsen needs a good 2nd and 3rd sectors here. Could improve, but I'm not sure he's going to be attacking the front row of the grid here unless he's had a mega final sector. We'll see what Dennis does now. He's going to be the next one over the line. Through comes Olsen, 7th note, so he lost too much time at the start of the lap. René Rast has improved, but only up to 9th. Best BMW, though, 9th place. Marco Wittmann, 10th. Sheldon van der Linde, 2nd in the championship, back in 16th place at the moment.
Yeah, the BMWs were struggling a bit yesterday for pace, so with 9th being the quickest, René Rast, 9th place. The BMW is still looking for a bit more.
Yeah, indeed. So we're down to 0 seconds now. So the flag comes out. Lucas Harris, the first one to take it. Everybody with the last roll of the dice then to try and come through and improve here. But there's nobody absolutely lighting up the timing screens. David Schumacher in 13th, had a personal best middle sector. But overall, he just loses out lap time as he comes through. I think it might be it. Bortolotti might just have done the job. It looks like 2 was the maximum. Dennis Olsen, yeah, personal best first sector, but 43.6. Again, it's half a second. He's losing half a second to Bortolotti in that first sector. So the best he can hope for is to drag himself, I think, back into the top 5 or 6. Is in 7th place at the moment. But the Italian Mirko Bortolotti, 4th in the championship, coming into the pits, looks for all intents and purposes like he has done it. We've got Ricardo Feller out there still going pretty rapidly. Not a personal best first sector, but only 3/10 down there. Middle sector was good, personal best, but he's lost about another 2/10 there. So I don't think he's going to improve overall in terms of the lap time here. 3rd place looks like it's as good as it gets, and that is the case. And Olsen fails to improve either. He's crossed the line in 7th position. So Mirko Bortolotti becomes the 7th different pole sitter from 7 qualifying sessions. There's a theme here, isn't there?
There is.
Thomas Preining comes home in 2nd place, the championship leader. Ricardo Feller, Mr. Consistent this year, comes home in 3rd place. Actually, his qualifying hasn't been mega this year, Ricardo. He's had that pole position, but he's only averaged 10th on the grid. Ricardo's tended to come through in the races, and this time he's got himself a really good grid position. There's the team boss, Olaf Mantai there, will be pretty satisfied, I think. Thomas Preining on the front rows. You say he's got the success balance to carry in the first race based on his victory last time out at the Nürburgring, but that's a pretty good starting position. Bortolotti, though, has looked on it since yesterday, fastest in free practice too, and he puts in the quickest lap time here. A new lap record as well, 1:25.118 to get pole position. So Bortolotti and Preining will be the front row of the grid. Ricardo Feller 3rd. Kelvin van der Linde coming home in 4th place, gets a good qualifying session as well. Jack Aitken will be, I think, pleased with 5th after a difficult time at the Nürburgring. Ron Pereira 6th, Dennis Olsen 7th, Lucas Aaron 8th, and then René Rast and Marco Wittmann, the best of the BMWs, in 9th and 10th. Pretty good session for Patrick Niederhauser in 11th place. Lauren Heinrich in 12th. David Schumacher looking for more points this weekend in 13th place. Thierry Vermeulen in 14th. Another DTM debutant this season. Clement Schmidt rounding out the top 15 there. You can see the rest of the runners. Disappointment for Ionjin Nguyen there, who was pretty quick yesterday in the sessions. Christian Engelhardt down there in 24th place. Tim Heinemann, remember him, he was the championship leader, Tim Heinemann, after the first 2 races, but he's back there in 25th place. So disappointing that for the local team, Top Sport. And then with the 2 points that he's just scored for 2nd on the grid, Thomas Preining, of course, extends his championship lead from 10 out to 12 points now, with Sheldon van der Linde, his nearest rival, back in 16th position on the grid. Mirko Bortolotti has scored 3 points, so he moves up to 3rd in the standings on 63. But Sheldon van der Linde with work to do here. He's going to be starting 16th. It's his 2nd worst grid of the year. It's his worst grid position since the first weekend at Oschersleben. And Kelvin van der Linde, his brother, on the flip side of that, has got his best qualifying of the year. Kelvin looking for his first podium finish since this weekend 12 months ago, when he finished 2nd to his brother Sheldon in that historic race. There, Thomas Preining then out of the car, looking hard to read the body language really, whether he's pleased or not with that. I suppose he always wants to be on pole, but you can't always be on pole position, as we have found out this year in DTM. Ricardo Feller in 3rd. The gap was quite big, I suppose, which will be a bit of a concern for them, because Bortolotti, Brian, ended up a 10th and a half clear. And there he is, Mirko Bortolotti, his first pole position of the year. SSR Performance, his new team, who've been running the Lamborghinis this year as opposed to the Porsches that they ran last year, get their man on pole position. I've already had a pole with Frank Pereira. All pleased down at Abt. Good session for them in 3rd and 4th positions. And Ricardo Feller, I think we already knew it, Brian, but he's 100% a championship contender this year, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he is Mr. Consistency this year, isn't he? Look at that. The top 22 cars covered by less than a second. How close is that? But Mirko Bortolotti, he has looked so strong. from the get-go, yesterday in both free practice sessions, he was always a contender. Whatever they found on that Lamborghini Huracan, they said there was an issue for the first couple of rounds. Whatever they've found, whatever they've done, they've sorted it. Mirko Bortolotti is back with style. He is going to be so strong this afternoon. Thomas Priding, remember, he will have that success ballast that he's going to have to carry as well. Ricardo Feller will be looking at the two cars ahead of him and rubbing his hands together.
Yeah, and good effort from Jack Aitken as well. Had a podium, as I said, at Oschersleben, but Ferrari's the only brand yet to get a race victory this year, so might be hard from fifth on the grid, but good to see Jack up there. Thierry Vermeulen not too bad either, in 14th place, still learning his way. Didn't have a great deal of, not like a lot of drivers, karting experience. So still a young driver at just 20 years of age, and pretty good effort that from Ferrari and from the Emile Frey racing team. Finally then getting off the helmet and about to receive his Pirelli P0 pole position award here is Mirko Bortolotti. Cool as a cucumber, and doesn't even look like he's broken into a sweat, does he? He's a super fit
He's only done 5 minutes work, hasn't he? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I suppose that's a fair point. Yeah, sat around for the first 10 minutes, didn't they? And then tootled around for the next 10 minutes, or most of it. So there he poses in front of the podium board there with his trophies, first of the year, his first pole position of the year, but also, I suppose more importantly, a very valuable 3 championship points coming the way of Mirko Bortolotti. And it is amazing how much those championship points are affected at the end of a season if you can get consistent point scoring in qualifying. Super slow-mos of our top 3. Ricardo Feller with a really good session coming home in 3rd place. Let's head down to Verena in the pit lane. Thanks, Verena. Yeah, he loves this place. He loves it even more now. So there's some onboard footage from Mirko, who got close to that record in practice yesterday and absolutely obliterated it today. Some really quick times that were set in a mad last 3.5 minutes of the session, really. So onboard with Mirko, you can see from these pictures much more undulation than you think as well around this circuit. And Canberra as well. That's the run through turn 5. The pole lap here as he makes his way through turns 6 and 7. This exit here is absolutely critical, because then you begin at the end of the first sector and through sector 2, this climb up through turn 8. It gets steeper and steeper and steeper. I can tell you that because I tried to run through it yesterday. But Mirko Bortolotti, this the pole position lap that puts him there in the best position for the race at 1:30 this afternoon. Back to you, Verena.
Team, and yeah, let's try to score some good points.
All right, you go for it. Thank you so much, Ricardo. And that's it from the qualifying here at the Nürburgring. And yeah, we're very much looking forward to the race here, that's for sure. So you don't want to miss it. See you later. And here are the highlights of the day. Enjoy.